Hello everyone, welcome back. We're going to be talking a little bit about PiLiPiLi's team, which is Redbloods. And I gotta say, man, this is actually one of the teams that, some people are familiar with some of the teammates that you have, but they aren't too familiar with the team itself. Could you tell us a little bit more about your team?
Yeah, sure. Well, my team is mostly European team, so I'm in the team not mostly as a player, as a streamer. They play a lot of Clone Wars and they actually have really good results, but I cannot play because it's usually at night for me or at the time when I'm in college, so I'm mostly as a streamer. But they have really good roster. That's Lincoln, Space Marine, Hanfi, and a couple other really good players. And they actually show really good results in the team leagues. It's one of the, I think, most strongest teams so far. They always make it really far. I've been with a team for like a while actually. I used to be as a player, but then since they I wasn't showing as good results as a player, I kind of went out of this team and I got back as a streamer. But yeah, this team is fairly young. I don't think it's like more than 6 months or maybe 7 months when since the team was created. And I think it's showing, like, I've been in a lot of teams actually when they were been starting, and usually teams like die really fast after like 2-3 months due to like they cannot pay to players, or players don't show results, or management is slacking, or something happens. This team's been staying really strong for like a reasonable amount of time, and I think it's gonna make it far.
What do you feel has been your biggest results as a player so far?
Well, it's haven't been much. I've been like getting the quarterfinals of like Zodiac when it was alive. I've been getting into some. Well, for example, 3 days ago I was actually playing in a Desert tournament, and I got second place, and I beat Haktio, I beat Arthur, Korean Protest 2-1, and I beat B-Lord, some other players. I was kind of surprised by myself. I lost to Bales 3-1 at the end, but it still was pretty good because I was not expecting to even beat Arthur, and then I actually beat Huck as well. So I guess this is my PvP is pretty good because I only play PvP on ladder. But yeah, I didn't have. Well, I qualified for breaking out, so that's something. But yeah, I never had like something big. I've been winning a lot of like little tournaments, like below like $100 prize pool, where it's like there's no Koreans, and it's gonna be like 1-2 good NA players, and you just beat them and you win. But yeah, I never had that much success. Tried to double CS qualifiers, lost to Puck, lost to Scarlet, lost to somebody else. I don't remember. So didn't really go my way. Took a game off of Scarlet and I almost beat her, but nope, didn't happen. But yeah, so I haven't actually got that many results actually, if you think about it.
It's actually kind of funny that you say that, because I remember I was looking at, your tournament results and like the players that you've beaten. And while I agree, you haven't necessarily won a lot, I'm sort of surprised. I feel like you're almost underselling yourself, because you're talking about a lot of really good players that you've actually managed to beat, like Huck, taking games off of Scarlet and, beating Korean players like Arthur. And that's actually pretty impressive. So I'm kind of curious, what do you consider to be like the most important thing when we're talking about results? Is it just winning the tournament, or is it beating top level players and showing that you can compete with them? What does it mean to you to be as successful as a player?
Yeah, it's definitely winning tournaments because I've beaten so many players on ladder, but it's nothing. Nobody cares. The only way to prove yourself is to win in the tournament. And every time I go to the tournament, I would either like choke really hard and like lose to somebody, or do some stupid mistake, or get metagamed, or maybe I think it's not enough. Well, PvZ is my biggest weakness because everybody metagame me, so PvZ is definitely my problem. Maybe a lack of variety in the strategies, and sometimes I'm just not confident. Sometimes I would go to the player against a player. Like, this is what I noticed. Sometimes I go into the tournament like, okay, I'm playing like Puck, I'm dead, and I'm just gonna go and do strategy that I've never used before, just to coin with like proxy Dark Shrine into proxy or Stargate into proxy 5 bases into something dumb. It just doesn't work, obviously, and then I noticed that when I was playing Huck, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna play my standard, and I play standard game and I beat him. And I think this is I had a problem before that I always would try to like do something extraordinary that I've never practiced to be the better player, rather than trying to play standard and something I actually like been practicing. So then that's my problem. And yeah, not enough strategies, and I'm not. Sometimes I get really nervous and I just do like really stupid stuff for some reason, or like misplace my force field in the most easiest situation ever. Like I would never misplace that force field, but I lost because of one misplaced force field or something. Maybe not enough practice in the tournaments too.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if is it just a matter of like, you feel the nerves because you don't have enough experience, or you don't necessarily have enough confidence in yourself and being able to beat a lot of these players? Because you mentioned stuff
Yeah,
like
it's probably just confidence and lack of experience, because I don't know, because like you play like, for example, Puck once again, and you know that he like beat J-Donk yesterday for one or something, and you're like, okay, there's no way I beat this guy, and this guy is like, okay, I just beat J-Donk, I'm not gonna lose to some PiLiPiLi guy. So like, there's a difference in the confidence too, because when you play on ladder, it's Barket versus Barket, so you don't know your opponent, so you just crush him because you play like okay. But when you play PiLiPiLi versus Puck, everybody knows Puck gonna win, so that's a problem, I guess. So like, mentality kind of kills you.
Is there anything you're doing to kind of work on that or sort of improve that?
I used to like not compete in the tournaments at all, because I was like, okay, there's like Hawk sign up, this guy sign up, this guy sign up. I'm just not gonna waste my time. Now I'm trying to like participate in every single tournament. Like, even if it's gonna be like a $1 price pool, but there's gonna be some players, I will just sign up and play, because like, you just need to gain experience, I think, because there's not been a lot of players that's been like, okay, it's my first time in a tournament and he suddenly wins. No, like, everybody been nervous, everybody been choking in the tournament, so you just need to get experience in that particular area. When it doesn't come down, especially to it doesn't come down to your skill. It comes down to your like preparation level, I guess.
Hey man, that $1, it'll buy you a soda. Actually, used to buy you a lot more than a soda, but these days it'll buy you a soda. So don't shake your head too hard at that $1. But regardless, let's talk a little bit about your Protoss versus Protoss, because you've mentioned PVZ, not feeling the greatest about it. In fact, you kind of said it's your worst matchup. PVT, you said it's not your best, but it's not your worst. Does that mean Protoss versus Protoss, your best matchup?
Yeah, it's kind of the best, because like, as I said, top GM Protoss, top GM on it's all Protoss players, so I get to practice PvP a lot, and I really usually play like real good players. I'll play Bales all day, I'll play Puck all day, I'll play Hawk all day. So I'm kind of getting the practice of it, so I kind of improved on it. The only problem is that PvP sometimes can be really coin flippy. Like, you can get really lucky or really unlucky. So sometimes I can lose to really, like in PvZ, if somebody is like way worse than me, I'll never lose. If PvT somebody way worse than me, I'll never lose. In PvP, if somebody is way worse than me, might lose. But in the same way, I can actually beat somebody who's way better than me, while I cannot beat some Terran that's way better than me. So PvP is, but I think if I will play somebody on my level, I'm most confident in playing PvP, and I think my builds are quite okay, and I don't think my builds are like coin flip or anything. I'm trying to play as standard as I can, so like, I'll open like Stargate, and usually it's Stargate or Blink. I'll try to play really safe, not greedy, not like coin flippy, and try to get to like a mid game, and then it really depends how it goes. In PvP, you cannot really, you only can like predict what's gonna happen first 5 minutes, then it's just all crazy. It's gonna be Oracle finding your base, and then random DTs coming up. And there's a lot of people that have really cool builds on NA, so sometimes it's just, you can't even predict what they're gonna, like for example, Arion was doing like he would proxy a Stargate, make like an Oracle 2 Phoenixes, and go for the DTs. And like, first time I play it, and then like he snipes your observer and gets DTs in. First time I play, I die horribly, but second time I already had like you would never do that in a normal game, but I had like proxy observers on the map. So when he snipes one, I have like another one coming up, so his DT is failed, so then I win the game. But like, if you play somebody else who does that, I'll probably will not be able to win that game. So because like, I don't know that he does it. So PvP comes down to the mind games. So and also the good thing about this tournament overall is that like, I'll know my opponents in advance, so I'll be able to prepare myself. And since I have a lot of friends like a patch toss, I might just ask him to give me the replays of other PvP players. So it's gonna be easier, because PvP is a lot comes down to build order. But I feel really comfortable in PvP, that's for sure.
Right, cool. Well, only one way to find out how your PvP actually looks, since it sounds like it can vary pretty heavily depending on who you're facing. Let's go ahead and check it out, guys. We'll see you guys in a little bit.
PvP is a little bit more like of a reaction, I think, rather than anything else.
All right, cool. Well, only one way to find out how your PvP actually looks, since it sounds like it can vary pretty heavily depending on who you're facing. Let's go ahead and check it out, guys. We'll see you guys in a little bit.
It's game time! Protoss versus Protoss.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Protoss versus Protoss. Once again, joined here by Rotterdam. We're going to be checking this game out as we spawn up here in the top right-hand corner on top of the red Protoss player. Once again, highlight player of the day, it is PiLiPiLi. And Rotterdam, who is spawned in the bottom left?
It is a man that we're all very familiar with. I think it is safe to say that he is the best American. So I'm not saying best North American. But I think he's the best American player right now that we have. He's representing F-side. It is Puck. Would you agree with that statement, Fear Dragon?
Oh, you know, I've been running through the list in my head. Like, I'm even trying to think about, like, if you consider, like, for example, I know for a while Betrayus was in North America, but was he, like, a North American player because he was not from North America? And then there's,
well,
like,
I mean, yeah, even if that is the case, I said just American, right? Not North American.
Yeah.
So I'm not including the Canadians, but
Yeah,
I don't think there is a better American player than Puck.
I would definitely agree. He was, at a minimum, he was, like, absolutely one of the top three. So, very,
yeah,
very
but
awesome.
I just don't think you can put anyone above him right now when it comes to achievements, consistency.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I'm not saying that he would win every American tournament, but I do think that he's the best player right now in the US.
Yeah, he's a very fun player to watch also, especially if you watch his stream. He's notorious for his good old Colossus drops and all that kind of good fun stuff, but, you know, as you're saying, like, just has been getting a lot of results lately. But Protoss vs. Protoss is one of those matchups that's kind of hard to predict what players are going to do, just because it's such an adaptive, kind of reactive matchup. After the 5-minute mark, it kind of becomes, you know, do whatever makes sense kind of thing.
I actually think it's before that. I don't think it's after the 5-minute mark. I actually think like the first building, that is pretty much where the game is weird. And as soon as the first units see each other, you know, you see X or you see Y, then most good players will be able to put the pieces in place immediately. And like I think like after, if both players go up to 2 bases, I think it's a pretty standard matchup, and there isn't too much that's going to surprise you anymore. It's more just the first building of choice. Stargate in your base, Proxy Stargate, Twilight, Dark Templar, 1 gate, Dark Templar, Gateway follow-up, 3 gate into DTs, you know, there's so many freaking openings in this matchup. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and I mean, all the different kind of openings do have small little tells, as you were kind of saying, and one of the small little tells is sort of how much gas you mine. And we already did see a slight deviation, and that's just kind of the fact that Puck stayed on those 2 gas geysers for a much longer period of time than PiLiPiLi did. PiLiPiLi sitting on 3 and 2 and then 3 and 3 for like almost immediately when he was throwing down that cybernetics core. So he's going to have a good bit more gas for this Stargate.
This is a really good scout, by the way, for Pili. Like, this is a scout you can only dream of in this matchup. Especially on a map like Deadwing, where there are so many stupid builds, because this map is incredibly large, and often the larger the map, the more risk people are willing to take in this matchup. Like, PvP is not a bad matchup at all if everybody decides to open up 2-gate Twilight Robo, you know? Like, if that would just be a gentleman's agreement, then this is one hell of a matchup. But it's not. Especially on big maps, people like try to hide stuff, try to get away with cheeky stuff. Pili went for a quick Stargate, which is, you know, pretty standard build on this map. But it's very nice to know that you're up against a 2-gate opening.
Yeah, he's going to be chrono boosting that Oracle out. And, you know, I really do love Stargate plays, especially on really, really big maps. And I feel like the bigger the map, the more comfortable you end up feeling with a Stargate play, just because you have so much room to work with. If your opponent ever tries to move out, even with, say, like Blink Stalkers or something, they have to go all the way across the map with those Blink Stalkers. Even if you can warp in your, you know, your reinforcements over at their base, there's a lot of time for that Oracle to kind of make them question their decision about moving out.
Yep, I could not agree more. It's an interesting opening by Puck. He opened up with 2 gates, and then he added gateway number 3, so it's sort of like 3 gateway aggression, while he has a mothership core as well. This is really good in denying a Nexus and stuff from going down. I don't think he will be able to achieve a whole lot else with this, especially with the mothership core there. But if he just delays the Nexus, or, you know, is able to get his own Nexus down before the Nexus of his opponent, that's already a small victory for Puck.
Yeah, his warp gates are finishing up. Actually, this could be a really, really crucial time, though, because the warp gates actually finished up right before the Oracle actually comes in. He's gonna be able to actually warp in units if he needs to. But no, actually, he throws on a photon overcharge. He's fine.
Yep. Yeah, good reaction time there by Puck, because sometimes if you're caught up in fighting or with your stalkers on the other side, oh, I really love how he move commanded those stalkers to get an extra volley up over there. No, that's actually really good. Sometimes it's better to move command than just to shoot, so Well done by Puck, but I don't think the game is going to end here. Immortals are just so good in this phase in the game, and PiLi even made a safety Void Ray, which in general I really hate making Void Rays in this matchup, because I feel after this phase is done, then you just like, you sit with a Void Ray in your army, you know, you're like, what am I going to do with this stupid Void Ray?
Yeah. Well, you know, I kind of like the Void Ray, especially in like the defensive situation. I agree. Like the problem is, what do you do with the Void Ray afterwards? But for now, I mean, especially when you start thinking about like how PiLi's kind of walled himself in and around his Nexus, his mineral line is pretty well defended, and Void Rays actually, as an air unit, just do pretty well against ground units if they have buildings to kind of cover them. Although not quite easily again.
I mean, he's right-clicking on the Void Ray, so he does get it, but now he's like in the middle of an Immortal that's gonna get... No, I don't think he has to... I mean, the Immortal's gonna die now, but at least 3 Stalkers should die, yeah. Oh my god.
Another Immortal pops out.
So in the end, he trades 5 Stalkers over there for an Immortal and a Void Ray, which I don't think is a good choice. Like, if I was PiLi, I'd be completely okay with losing that stupid Void Ray, because that Void Ray is just an uncomfortable unit in this phase of the game.
Yeah, I mean, the units, as you kind of mentioned, like, they ended up just chasing back into, like, the point of no return after that Void Ray. They basically committed themselves to engaging against the Immortal, and it didn't really work out so well for him, but Puck gonna be able to deny PiLiPiLi from moving down for a little bit, but...
Wow. The Oracle on the other
the
Oracle on the other side of the map has actually got 8 kills throughout this game. 8 kills is massive. That is so many. So right now, PiLi is actually 7 workers ahead. Despite the fact that he's under a soft contain, I wouldn't sweat that soft contain at all if I'm 7 workers ahead. And well, Puck's actually gonna give up, which makes it even worse because now, you know, he's sitting with 3 sentries. That is also massive overkill for this phase in the game.
Yeah, and it sucks because you know he wanted to continue that. He warped in another sentry, but he just didn't have the time to actually get to the ramp to force field. And actually, what makes everything even worse is that with the soft contain that he was trying to do, normally you do want to go for like some kind of expansion behind it, but
he wasn't.
Didn't have the chance to.
No, because he had no money.
Yeah.
He wiped in so many Stalkers. Stalkers are expensive units. Then he decided to wipe in a lot of sentries, despite the fact that he lost quite a few probes at home.
Yeah.
So he had to keep everything at gas, and then he just didn't have enough money to actually drop the Nexus during all this. So the contain in the end did not work at all because he wasn't able to follow up. He wasn't able to turn it into an advantage. And PiLi right now is in a really good position in this game.
Yeah, Puck still does have that robotics facility, so maybe he can make some kind of magic happen with it. Go for, I don't know. What would you actually like to see in like one of these kind of situations for Puck? Just like fast tech with Robo Bay or what?
Yeah, the only thing you can do in my opinion right now, he's gonna get the Oracle, that's nice, but the only thing you can do now if you're Puck is just defend, macro up, and just take it from there. You know you're behind a little bit, chrono boost out probes and nothing but probes. And scout with your sentries because you have plenty of hallucination. That's the only thing that he takes away from that battle. You could try to scare your opponent once or twice, not like actually commit to anything, but just like a small scare, so maybe you can catch up even further in workouts. But other than that, you just want to drop the fort. Oh my god, the Nexus. Oh wow.
Oh,
no
wow. Oh, PiLiPiLi missing the pickup on that other Immortal, but if you trade that for a Nexus, that's pretty nice.
Yeah. I don't know.
Misplaced it. I don't know if he was talking about the force field or what.
I think he was talking about the Nexus.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really bad for Puck.
Yeah, it definitely is. Kind of cute little maneuver that he did try to do that I'm like starting to realize what Puck was actually doing there. I think he was trying to force field the Immortal away, not just like from the other Immortal and keep the other one back, but I think he was trying to like give it distance from the Warp Prism, so PiLiPiLi would have to like move the Warp Prism to go pick up the other Immortal, and I think it kind of worked.
I mean, it kind of worked, but in the end he lost his Nexus.
Oh yeah, definitely not worth it in the end. But
it's like it's winning a battle and losing the war. Yeah. That's just what that was. You know, there's no better way to describe that.
Well, back at home, PiLiPiLi finally going up for his own robotics bay, and I actually think he's ahead of Puck's robotics bay. Yeah, Puck is actually not even going for a robo bay. He's going for Storm.
I mean, that is one way to get back into the game with a Storm drop. So instead of doing the same thing as your opponent, you can try to do something a little bit different and try to create an advantage for yourself like that with a Storm drop. Storm drops are actually becoming very popular in this matchup. The only thing that is kind of bad for Puck is that PiLiPiLi is the one who opened up with a Stargate, so he could decide to go for one Phoenix, and just a single Phoenix controlling the skies will already force a White Prism that wants to drop Artesian to leave those Dark Templars behind. And here we have the Storm Drop actually in the main base.
Yep,
That's really good.
Oh, that does some massive amount of damage. And he's still not quite equalized, but he's done enough, I think, for at least now. He can back off with that Storm Drop. But he has to be careful about these Void Rays, actually. Void Rays, even with a charge, oh my god, charge Void Rays do a lot of damage.
Yep, so he doesn't even need the Phoenix to control the skies. He just shut it down with the Void Rays. So, I mean, killing the workers is awesome for Park, don't get me wrong, but he just lost a lot of resources. That is 600 resources in total, you know, mostly minerals with some gas. Actually, a perfect 50-50 split. So 300 minerals, 300 gas that he just wasted there for 7 or 8 probes, while still being behind in workers is in the end, sadly enough, also not worth it for Puck.
Yeah, looks like the Immortal drop over in the main base actually do. Oh my god, is this Immortal actually going to be able to kill a lot of these Stalkers? Well, managed to kill off 2 of them, get one of them very low, but yeah. 2
Stalkers in a pylon, it's a pretty good trade too.
PiLiPiLi is just like getting the better end of all of these kind of random trades that they end up doing, even the ones where Puck tries to be the aggressor.
Yeah, I mean, PvP is a very fun matchup to play when you're ahead. I think every Protoss player will agree with me on that one. This is the most fun matchup in the game when you're ahead, because you know exactly what your opponent can and cannot do, and you can cover yourself everywhere. So it's also a very frustrating matchup, obviously, to play from behind, because there's often just you want to do something. You don't want to be the guy who sits back on the other side of the map and hopes for a miracle, but you know that you already have less than your opponent, so the more risk you put into your play, the harder it will most likely backfire, and the easier it is for your opponent to defend. So it can definitely be frustrating at times when you don't want to leave, because you're not like, you have the feeling you're not impossible. Yeah, you're not dead, but you're on life support, you know, you're just waiting for someone to pull the plug. You're like, flat line.
It's pretty hard to make that judgment call, but Puck gonna stick it in, and you know, there have been miracle situations though, with like really good zealot flanks on, you know, a Colossus army with a lot of immortals, and that's kind of what Puck's doing right now. He's getting a lot of those immortals up. He's gonna be getting charge up, and it could work.
But no, I like to disagree with you. Sorry, mate. But
that's all good.
There are definitely moments where you're 100% right, and yes, there are definitely ways to take advantage of the way that Colossus AI works and stuff. But if you take a look at this supply, you know, Puck is down 40 supply, he's down 9 workers, and his base is later, and he has the inferior army composition. Because I know that flanks and stuff can work, but at the end of the day, if you ask anybody, hey, what army would you rather have, a Colossus-based army or a Immortal Archon? Like, everybody will rather have the Colossus, because then you know the ball is in your corner. If you handle the fight correctly, you're gonna win. It's not that you have to do something spectacular.
Or something, yeah,
exactly. All you have to do is just not mess up, and you'll be fine. So I think most people will always prefer to be the Colossus player.
Yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense. Well, PiLiPiLi gonna be going for that third, and the game is gonna continue going on. And I guess one concern, again, this would maybe probably go back to one of those sort of mistakes, is if PiLiPiLi just kind of sits back a little bit too comfortably, he may actually give Puck time, because Puck is starting his Colossus production finally. He's got double Robo, so he's going to be able to crank them out relatively quickly. And I guess if he can get up enough Colossus to supplement the army that he's already been making, PiLiPiLi could kind of just be giving Puck a little bit too much breathing room.
The only thing I think that could go wrong for Pili is that sometimes people never attack. And sometimes, you know, people max out, but then they're like, oh, you know, I'm maxed out, but my upgrade is not done yet, or this or that, I don't really want to attack. And I think that's always a mistake. If you are maxed out and your opponent is not maxed out, that is the moment to fight, because you're never going to get a better fight than when you're up 30, 40 supply. You know, like, and having an extra upgrade or something can be awesome, but if you're maxed out and your opponent is not maxed out, there's no excuse, you just fight. Like, just try to take advantage of that, because even if you take a bad fight, you'll still be okay. You will never get absolutely demolished if you're ahead in supply and you have stronger units, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I know they're 100% is that fear. I think amongst almost every Protoss player is in PvP, just because you could just have, like, one of those... Everyone has those horrific stories of, like, well, you know, I was really far ahead in the game, and then I attack moved into my opponent, and, well, I moved into a giant concave, and I lost everything. And it's like, you're always afraid of that.
That is how every good StarCraft 2 story starts. So I was playing this ladder game and I was really far ahead. Like, I think all my friends, their stories start like that.
Oh man, really beautiful. But PiLiPiLi is going for the 4th now, man. I don't know. Do you think that this is getting a bit too passive? He's not maxed out just yet, but he's starting to get
it's very safe and conservative. But yes, I would like to see him move out. I think like taking the 4th while you're on the other side of the map, that's all right. But he's taking it right now, which indeed gives us the idea that he doesn't want to be aggressive just yet. Maybe get a few more gateways, but I have the feeling that now he's going to give Puck a chance to max out. And
yeah,
I felt like early, Puck was down 30-40 supply. Now he's only down 25 supply. And I think by the time that Pili is going to really commit to his attack, the only thing he will have going for himself is that he has +3 and his opponent. There's no way his opponent is going to have +3. So.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, Puck's still just kind of halfway into the Researcher +2 weapons, and based on PiLiPiLi's movement, I want to say he's going for an attack, but he's got to make sure that he doesn't mess this up anymore, because, he does still have the better army, but he's kind of getting to that point where if he takes a bad engagement, this could maybe still turn around.
Yep, any player with 8 Colossus can win a fight. I must say though that 6 Archons against 2, that is a massive difference. Like, I would love to be the guy with 6 Archons, because Archons actually is one of the very few units in this matchup that do a good job in soaking up damage against Colossus. And I really like the defensive setup over here of Puck.
Wow.
Well, if there is a dream, then this is the dream.
Alright, Immortals from Puck getting on top of the Colossus, actually taking out a lot of PiLiPiLi's army. PiLiPiLi charging up the Void Rays and going ham on the Colossus on the bottom side. But the top side Colossus for Puck engaging against PiLiPiLi, I think he's actually going to be able to hold this. Maybe?
It's close. The Void Rays are really annoying. And now there is one Immortal in the mix that's also kind of annoying.
Yeah.
And there is also like massive harassment in the main base. This is kind of like an overkill for... this is like actually... I know this sounds stupid, but I think this is a mistake. I make this mistake very often. That I take one of the final fights of the game, the big fight, and then I try to think about harassing in the main base. As Puck just left the game.
Yeah.
But in a way, I think it's very risky. Because attacks like this in PvP, if you lose an attack where you lose all 6 Colossus and your opponent survives with a bunch of them, you pretty much lose the game. So it's not worth focusing on harassment during a final attack. Like, it looks really cool, like, oh, I'm winning the fight and harassing at the same time. But often you will need that additional wave of reinforcements to seal the deal in a fight, rather than, perhaps you losing it. And then even if you kill a bunch of stuff in the main base, it doesn't mean anything if your opponent survives a fight with 4 Colossus and you lose all of them.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. If you keep those, your opponent keeps those power units alive, they kind of say, well, okay, cool, you killed my gateways. I'm going to go kill everything you have because I just have a better army that's sort of snowballed at this point. But very, very cool. It's a game to see. And sorry, Roddy, we're going to actually go ahead and jump to the analysis of PiLiPiLi for just a quick second. And hopefully you guys enjoy that. I'll see you guys in a second. Alright, we're back here with PiLiPiLi in the Protoss versus Protoss. You guys just watched, and PiLiPiLi, man, break this down for us. Let us know all the details. What was going on in this game for you?
Alright, so map was Deathwing, which is a pretty big map, so I wasn't really scared of anything like crazy, like proxy gates obviously, and not like a 10 gate, 3 gate where they go for the really fast warp and trying to kill you really fast. Also, I noticed that Puck did not scout me with the probe, so what I did is I made the Stargate before any units, which is pretty strong strategy because it usually works pretty well against everything pretty much. Nothing really hard counters it, especially on a map like that. Usually you really struggle against 3 gate pressures, but on this map you actually can hold it pretty significantly. Also, I noticed that he took a second gateway, so since he took a second gateway, I can freely go for the Oracle, because if they don't take a second gateway, and you cannot go for the Oracle, because if you go for the Oracle and they go for the Phoenix, you're pretty much dead. So that was the reason for me going for the Oracle, not for the Phoenix, which really helped me out. Also, since I know it's a second gateway, I know there's going to be some kind of aggression. So instead of adding the like a 1 gate expand with a Robo, I made 2 gateways, robotics, and I chrono boosted a couple of times the Cybernetic Core, so I can get a warp gate almost as fast as my opponent while harassing with a Oracle. Oracle usually does not do too much damage because there's usually going to be a photon charge waiting for it.
Yeah.
But the thing about the Oracle, once the photon charge is gone, your opponent has to warp instantly at home, which will slow down their initial 3-gate pressure. So that helps a lot.
Right.
So Oracle costs like 150 gas, 150 minerals, right? But they'll have to keep 3 stalkers at home. Or at least 2 is not enough because Oracle will still find perps to kill. So it's usually 3, which is already 375, right?
Yeah.
So it's already efficient and slows down their attack. Also, I of course made the Void because I don't 2 gates is not enough. So when you see that kind of aggression, you also want to go for as many units as you can, which is always the Voids and the Mortals. You force out Photon Charge with the Oracle and you wait till they expires and trying to attack once again. And from that, game really goes on and depends on who reacts the way they do, and like you just need to do reactionary stuff.
How do you actually feel about like the Void? Because obviously, as we actually just saw in the game, Void Array does help out quite a bit, and you actually do manage to hold out over here. But you end up having a couple of more Void Arrays actually made, and you sort of use them. You get lucky, like you actually manage to pick off a Warp Prism and everything with 2 of your Void Arrays later on. But I know that Void Rays are kind of a very weird position, right, in PvP. You don't really know how useful they're going to be later on in the game. So kind of what was going through your mind with the additional Void Ray production?
Yeah, usually Void Rays are just, because I know that he's going to be heavy on Stalkers, because he's only on 3 gateways, so he cannot really do anything besides Stalkers, and Zealots are not very good anyway, so I know like Void Ray is going to be useful anyway. Plus, like when you make Void Rays, and he plays like defensively, it's gonna help because he will have to make us Stalkers, which are pretty bad late game. So you don't want to have Stalkers late game, but he will force to make at least a couple to make sure like I don't go anything crazy like 5 Void Rays and then attack or something.
Yeah.
So it forces out like more Stalkers from your opponent. And then also I think it's very good in baking this kind of contains when they like make a couple sentries and a bunch of stalkers and like every time try to go down the ramp they will like force you. Void has helped a lot in that situation because like if you get like usually they will like let one immortal out and then they will force it so they'll kill immortal. But if they force an immortal out and you also have like 2 Voids to support it, then it's a different deal because you actually have like 3 units that are really powerful, so you can actually like do some damage without like losing too much. And actually break through the container and take your expansion out.
Huh, that's a really good point. I never actually thought about that. Well, cool tidbit. I'll make sure to try that out next time. So moving on to the late game, where exactly were you kind of sitting? Because you got to this point where you got really far ahead actually, and you kind of sat back for a really long time, waited until you were almost maxed out before really going in and committing to an attack. So how do you kind of tell when is too early and when is too late?
Well, it's really hard to say, but in PvP you don't really want to attack most of the times because they always will have like a better concave, they'll have like a better position most of the times. So unless they're like really far ahead and the map is relatively small like Overgrowth, then you can try to attack, but I prefer to not attack ever until like I max out. And by max out, I'm not meaning like trying to supply, I mean like actually trying to supply for efficient army. Because when you get to hard supply, what happens, you'll have like 20 zealots. So you go ahead and throw those zealots away. And you remax an Arc and Immortal. Because usually how it goes, and you make like 8 to 10 Colossus. After that, Colossus become useless because in the fight they're just going to be behind the army, doing nothing, and they're completely useless. So you want to go actually Immortals, and Immortals are pretty good against Colossus. So you always want to have like 10 Immortals, 10 Colossus and 7 Immortals, and then a bunch of Archons, and Zealots are only for reinforcements. So like when the battle actually finishes, you actually can reinforce really fast on Zealots. That's why you're supposed to have like a 20 gateways or so. But overall, I don't prefer to attack until I'm like really maxed out on the super efficient army, which is like Immortal, Colossus, Archons, like 1 Sentry, Mothership Core. So yeah, that's the plan for me most of the times. Also, when I attack, in this game, he had a way better concave than I did. So it was kind of a mistake on my part because he was like kind of from all sides. And even though my army was better, he still almost won the fight. But it's really important to always have a Warp Prism at the same time in his base or behind his army, so you can warp in directly on top of him or on top of his production, so you can actually kill his robotics and unpower his gateways. That way he can already max as fast as you can, especially if you are ahead economically. So that's something you always want to do in PvP. You don't want to just attack. You always want to attack and have like some backup plan, like a warp prism in his main or behind his army, so you can warp in on top of the Colossus usually. And Colossus are not, because the thing when you warp in, Colossus will not be automatically focused on Zealots. So only when Zealots are actually complete, this Colossus is gonna attack them. So that's always great. And then Zealots get on top of the Colossus and kill them pretty fast actually.
Yeah.
And then since he doesn't have Colossus, you actually break through. But sometimes in PvP you have to switch to Tempest, which I don't prefer, so I always stay on this standard composition.
Yeah, so one thing that Rotterdam was kind of saying that is that, you know, while the warp prism harassment at the very end, obviously it did end up working out and everything, it did a lot of damage with all the Zealots warped in. He was actually saying, you know, it's kind of one of those things you have to be very careful of in PvP, because generally you just prefer those Zealots, kind of make sure you take the engagement even more handily. You know, you start splitting up your Zealots, starts like spreading out, they get picked off, and maybe you don't do enough damage. When do you kind of feel comfortable going for that sort of warp prism harassment after the engagement versus just reinforcing with your Zealots, like for example behind their army to like pick off their power units?
Yeah, actually in that game when the engagement started, my warp prism used to be behind his army, but then I saw that my army is like way better, so I felt like kind of confident to just fly warp prism around and warp in his main. But usually like in 90% of the situation I will keep it with my army. But when I know that my army is strong enough to deal with his army and his reinforcements, then I'll go for the counterattack. Plus, the thing when they go for the counterattack with the Warp Prism, they'll have to warp in back too. So they spend their warpins defending too. So they cannot really defend warping aggressively either way. So it's not a bad thing.
All right, cool, man.
The cannons do not hold this. Like, 4 Zealots will kill like 4 cannons, no problem.
Cannons don't do anything versus Zealots. I'm actually convinced that's like part of their armor attribute, is that they're just like effective against Zerglings, take extra damage versus Psyblades from Zealots.
Yeah.
But thank you very much regardless, and that is actually going to do it for our PvP and our analysis segment, so thank you so much for that. We're going to be jumping back to the next segment, which is going to be going back to the interview. So guys, don't go anywhere. We will be right back.